European witch hunts lasted from 1450 to 1750. Witchcraft cases started to increase gradually from the 14th to the 15th century. Many believe it was from natural disasters and epidemics like the Black Death, which was a bubonic plague. From 1550 to 1650, it is known as the Burning Times, the mass hysteria for witch hunts. There is no other time period in European history where women have been targeted selectively for torture and to be killed. Being accused as a witch was the same as being convicted. Many experts believe that developing countries where Catholicism was at their weakest experienced mass hysteria over witches. Some examples include Germany, Switzerland, and France. There was little witch craze where the Catholic Church was strong, like Italy, Spain, and Portugal. Witch hunts varied at different parts of Europe. In Germany, the rates range from high 26,000, and in Ireland it ranges at about 4. Additionally, the witches were convicted by local courts, not by the church. Half of the sentenced witches were executed in public by burning or hanging. Research suggests that there were approximately 110,000 trials between 1450 and 1750, and 50,000 to 80,000 executions, both men and women. On average, 48% of trials ended in an execution. Also, women testified in great quantities against other women. Research shows that women were 43% of the witnesses. It seems that women were vigorous in building up reputations by gossip and accusing suspects. To manifest a witch craze into formal prosecution, there needed the intervention of men, especially with those of high status in the community. The accused witches were interrogated, and some using torture. With this tactic, many confessed to witchcraft because of the brutal torture. Traditional tortures were used, including thumb screws, leg vices, whipping stocks with iron spikes, scorching lime baths, prayer stools furnished with sharp pegs, racks, and the strappado, which is the lifting of an individual on a pulley to pull the arms from the sockets. Also, another witch hunting method was known as swimming or ducking, where the individual's hands and feet were tied and the accused witch submerged in water. If the individual floated, that meant he or she was considered guilty. If they sank and drowned, he or she was deemed innocent. The accused could also be pricked all over with a sharp instrument, known as pricking, to find insensitive spots where the devil had marked them. Victims of witchcraft were not all women, but many consider the witch craze as genderized mass murders. When the witch hunts hastened after the 1500s, there were male victims, but females were the main suspects. Around 75 to 80% of those suspected and charged of witchcraft in early modern Europe were female. 20 to 25% of Europeans executed for witchcraft between the 14th and 17th centuries were male. The majority were poor peasants and artisans. The elderly were most acceptable to allegations of witchcraft because they seemed most independent from male-controlled standards. Older women who had never given birth or were beyond giving birth. They were the female group most difficult to comprehend. More women than men were likely to survive into a dependent old age. They could also be seen unreasonable as a burden by neighbors. Many people believe that women who were considered a witch wanted things for herself or her household from her neighbors. Also, research suggests that being a midwife reduced a woman's chances of being charged, and midwives were more likely to help witch hunters and be prosecuted by them. The Malleus Maleficarum, translated as The Hammer of Witches, was published by Catholic Inquisition authorities in 1485. It became the most persuasive and commonly used handbook on witchcraft. The handbook was widely distributed. It was one of the first books to be printed on the newly invented printing press and appeared in over 20 editions. The moral support from the handbook had been provided for a terrible, endless suffering, torture, and human disgrace imposed on thousands of women. The Hammer of Witches says that all wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Women are a necessary evil, a natural temptation, a domestic danger, an evil nature. Women are by nature instruments of Satan and a structural defect rooted in the original creation. An individual was accused of being a witch for different reasons. For example, some were accused of cannibalism, or simply because they kept cats, which were thought to be familiars, or demons given to witches by the devil. Many believed the familiars were their guides and messengers. Additionally, some believe witches had the power to cause impotence or diseases. They could cause infants to be stillborn, or to inhibit cows from giving milk, or to change form into an animal, and even to sail on a single plank or in an eggshell. The witch hunters assumed a witch's mark, also called a devil's mark or a witch's teat, was sufficient evidence that the individual was a witch, and they believed that the mark was a symbol of feeding the familiars or the devil. The witch's mark may have been moles, scars, birthmarks, extra nipples, natural blemishes, or patches of skin. The last judicial execution for witchcraft in Europe was in 1793, when 2 old women were burned in Poland, but a wizard died as a result of an unofficial ordeal by water in 1865 in England.